Richard Farias is an activist, director of student activities at San Antonio College, where he previously served on the English faculty. And at SAC, he was the advisor for GALA, that's the Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transgender, and Ally student organization on campus from 2008 to 2013. He's also chaired the Hispanic Heritage Month. In 2010, he founded Coming Out Week as an institutionally recognized cultural celebration at SAC. And then since coming out in 2004, he's been driven to improve the visibility, recognition, and the equality of the LGBT community. He is board chairman for the Pride Center San Antonio. That is a startup LGBT community center that will provide connections to social services, health resources, and community education. He also serves as a board member for Equality Texas. That is a statewide advocacy organization. Please give a warm San Antonio welcome to Richard. Oh, he's way down there. Richard Farias.
Thanks. This is really happening. Good evening. So there's a label that was applied to my name tonight's program. I hadn't often self-applied, and that's activist. Seeing it made me think of these two guys, Emerson and Thoreau. They're not gay. The classic dichotomy between the studious philosophe and the take it to the streets type of activist. And honestly, I have to tell you, I'm really more the Emersonian type, but I'm okay with activist for right now. If I ever needed a reminder about why we all need a little Thoreau in our spirits, that happened during the fight for the Non-Discrimination Ordinance, or NDO, this past summer. The summer of Where is the Love, I call it, when anti-equality folks were bussed into downtown to speak out against something that they call a lifestyle, and something that many of us in San Antonio simply call our lives. The proposal was a new ordinance that updates the city code to add sexual orientation, gender identity, and veteran status as protected categories to city employment, boards and commissions, contracts, fair housing, and public accommodations. Roughly 185 cities across the U.S. have already had these protections since before the city council vote on September 5th, but not here in the 7th largest city in the nation. Most people had never even heard of the NDO until June this year, but the LGBT community started working toward it in summer of 2011. We knew it would take a big fight and that many would contest it. Nobody knew this more than our ally, District 1 Councilmember Diego Bernal. But no one could have anticipated, yes, quite the level of response, anger, and vitriol we faced, and certainly no one could have expected the event that was Elisa Chan. You know you've become a social media flashpoint when the incomparable George Takei, oh my, decides to post a diatribe against you, reaching out to his 5.1 million fans on Facebook. Womp womp, Miss Chan. With any luck, there might be a Bumps Steer Award in your future. Thankfully, in the face of ignorance, science marches on. If you've never heard of epigenetic theory, I encourage you to Google it. The idea is that there's a combined interaction between latent genetic markers and environmental factors in the womb or just after birth that may account for the phenomena called sexual orientation. So I may be gay because of a perfect storm of heredity and environment. But let's talk about environment for a moment, shall we? Something I'll never ever understand is the rationale for bringing children up in an environment where hate is taught as the norm. I look at images like these from Westboro Baptist Church, which is neither a real church nor a recognized Baptist congregation, and I cry to see children being brought up like this by their families. If we're going to talk about family then, and about our control over environmental factors, let me show you what a loving family looks like. My family. This is what it looks like when two parents agree to love each other for over 53 years and agree not merely to act as, but to become instruments of God's unconditional love. This is what it looks like to model that for your children. Although I've never had a shortage of loving moments from my parents, I learned what love really means when my parents joined me to speak before the mayor and city council the day before the NDO vote, and they stayed with their gay son until about 1 o'clock in the morning to speak truth to power. This is what love is. I'm so proud of them, and I'm blessed to have them here tonight. And here we are today, 2 months and 2 weeks since the NDO passed. Since San Antonio showed the rest of the world that it was ready to embrace an inclusive policy to prevent unwarranted, biased, and hateful discrimination. This symbol was created by a friend of PechaKucha, Mr. Ben Judson, and I'm really glad he did as a strong ally. One of the most instrumental media moments for me came out, I came out of the closet a few years ago, was when the San Antonio Current actually ran this 2006 cover, proclaiming out an essay, "Gays and lesbians live here, get over it." Wow, I thought myself, in San Antonio estamos presente. We're here we are, and maybe, just maybe, it's up to the rest of the city to get used to that fact. Well, that only took 7 more years. As the Reverend Martin Luther King said, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. Some of you may recognize this man, Hap Veltman. I wonder what Hap would think of this moment. When you come out in San Antonio, you learn that this man was a downtown real estate developer, an entrepreneur who established restaurants and nightlife, an arts advocate, and a historical conservationist, and he just happened to be gay. He was born and raised in San Antonio, and one of his legacies is the oldest gay bar in town, the irreplaceable Bonham Exchange. He also helped prevent the razing of the Aztec Theater and the Josephine Street Theater. And as the Current once reported, Hamp went on to develop numerous riverfront properties, including a grungy complex of tire-filled warehouses known as the Blue Star. Sadly, Hap passed in 1998, but I wonder what he would say if he could see the city that he cared about so much finally acknowledge his basic civil liberties. This image of the center on Halsted, Chicago's LGBT community center, is something I'd love to see even half this size in San Antonio one day. After all, by conservative estimate, there are 50,000 to 80,000 Bexar County residents who are LGBT. I love that, man. Given the passage of the NDO, San Antonio is really ripe for an opportunity to create a viable, sustainable LGBT community center. Our goal is to create a space where we can host support groups for everyone from youth to the aged, transgender resources, event space, art space, and community education. Currently, the Pride Center oversees the Peace Officer Training Committee, which liaises directly with the San Antonio Police Department, thanks to Chief McManus, to provide LGBT sensitivity training to every single new police academy cadet. Time again, it's been proven that this knowledge can actually prevent harm to citizens and to the police who are serving them. In addition, the Pride Center partners with other local LGBT groups to host 2 annual family events, a family Easter egg hunt, and a party and a fall family fest featuring games, free food, and costume contests. Each of these events drew over 200 people in their first year this year, and having attended both, I can tell you we were overwhelmed by the response. Recent events have shown us that there is so much more work to do. Recently, a restaurant I used to love has garnered attention for allowing anti-NDO protesters to solicit petitions outside their establishment. All the while, the owners and management have skirted the issue, simultaneously wanting to welcome LGBT people to spend money there, while also allowing anti-LGBT people to greet us at the door. Well, it's not going to work. I want to leave you with a couple of images. The first is a display of pride up top the Empire State Building, showcasing a city and a state that's proud enough to embrace its population. This image is from 2011, when New York legalized same-sex marriage. It may have spoken volumes to New Yorkers, but it's such an American icon, it spoke to all of us. So I'll leave you with this image from the inaugural Luminaria, a lighting installation from Bill Fitzgibbons. This may have been about art and not necessarily about LGBT people, but I can tell you this, just like the current cover photo I showed earlier, public displays of support from our allies matter. Perhaps one day the Tower of the Americas will shine in rainbow colors, even just for one day, to show without question that the Alamo City embraces all of its diverse people. Thank you.
Give it up for Richard Farias. Great job. Okay. I'll get to the embarrassing personal questions here in just a minute. But first of all, that NDO. 2 things. What did the NDO itself mean for San Antonio? But then also, in a bigger sense, what did the fight over it mean? What it came to be when it blew up the way it did?
MLK, who is a hero, obviously, Martin Luther King, had a great quote about exposing oil to the air so you can deal with it. So the fight for the NDO really was about exposing that oil to deal with it and have that fight and move past it. The NDO means that now, if you're lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, you can't walk into a public establishment and they can't kick you out simply because they're gay. You're gay. That used to be the case.
And the bathrooms. There are still people, I don't know if you know this, you'll still drive by and see people trying to raise petitions, signatures for a petition to recall the mayor and council members who voted for this, not just one. What does that make you feel like? That was my Barbara Walters question for the evening. How does that make you feel?
Yeah, the nice fake Barbara Walters
I'm
question.
sorry.
No, I'm kidding. No, it's people who aren't able or willing at this point to catch up with the times, and I hope they will one day. But if they don't, they won't last forever.
And what's the next fight? What's the next hurdle? What's the next challenge?
The next fight is recognizing that we don't just deserve legal protections, but that we deserve the ability to be visible in a way that everyone else is. One of my colleagues at San Antonio College likes to say, straight people come out all the time. You talk about your boyfriend if you're a girl, or you talk about your girlfriend if you're a boy, or you talk about your husband and your wife. Straight people come out all the time, and gay people still have that moment of hesitation, no matter how long they're out, usually, where they wonder if it's okay to say it. That's the next fight.
Cool, give them a hand.